Good evening. Welcome to the QCIS channel. Where on this channel, you get a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. And tonight, I want to talk about contract administration because we mainly think of contracts when we deal with construction. Well, contracts are everywhere. So I'm going to get into this. I'm going to get into this PowerPoint, and we are going to talk about contract administration. Now, this information I got from the city of Chicago, the city of Chicago's Department of Procurement and Contracts. Now, what I've done, I've broken everything down, giving you the definitions, and I'm giving you some of the products and services that are associated with contract administration. Now, you don't know who I am? My name is Leon Jones, and we're dealing with contract administration. And I brought up the city of Chicago, the Department of Procurement and Contracts. So, first of all, what is contract administration? Well, it is the process of managing and executing a contract between two parties, from the initial stages to the delivery of goods or services. Now, the goal of contract administration is to ensure that both parties fulfill their responsibilities and that the contract is performed in a satisfactory manner. Now, you've heard the definition. So we're going to go into the procurement and contracts. And now I'm going to give you an overview of contract administration. Now, some might get it mixed up between contract management, but we're not managing, we are managing a contract. We're managing more than one contract. See, project contracts, well, you have to define what a project is. It could be a construction project, it could be a manufacturing project, but the emphasis is the same. So when we talk about contract administration, there are a number of activities associated with contract administration. And I've identified 5 of them for you. Planning, which when you plan, you identify contracting partners, you draft and you finalize the agreement, and you set terms. Planning, that's the first thing. It's identifying your contracting partners. You're going to draft and finalize the agreement, and you're going to set terms. And you go ahead and execute. You ensure compliance with the contract, monitoring performance, and you manage changes. And you coordinate. So you work with key departments to review clauses, you work with stakeholders, you finalize terms, and you agree on the type of contract language. And here's one that's very important: risk management. Basically, you're managing risks, compliance, and disputes and communication. You're maintaining clear communication and documentation. You will always hear that from construction personnel as well. And you have to understand that contract administration is a vital part of the contract lifestyle, and it helps to ensure the contract's success. Why? Because it can help minimize or eliminate problems, potential claims, and of course, disputes. Now, when we get into the need to deliver the products or services, well, here's what's associated with the contract: contract drafting, negotiation, document management, obligation management, procurement, performance monitoring, auditing and reporting, change management, managing contract renewals or terminations, and services related to specific contract types like sales contracts or service agreements. Now, within every department, because there is a department of procurement and contracts, this is in Chicago, and it's comprised of 5 primary units. We're going to have your financial and administrative services, have systems management and technology services, strategic planning and procurement policy, contract compliance and vendor services, purchasing and contract administration. Now, the departmental responsibilities. Of course, when we deal with finance and administrative services, we're going to talk about requisition services, office management, records management, and vending services. And our systems management and technology services include e-procurement, bids, RFPs for technology goods and services, and the purchasing of the website. When we get into strategic planning and procurement policy, we're simply talking about procurement policies and procedures, strategic sourcing, board reports, contract administrators for special projects, contract compliance, and vendor services. And this is when we deal with M or WBE monitoring. When we talk about WBEs, we're talking about setting goals for minority and women business enterprises. And we have the MWBE statistical data, because you have to, on each and every contract, have a certain amount of minority and women vendors on contracts. And we have vendor performance issues. We also have vendor report cards. Then we get into purchasing and contract administration. That means we're going to have competitive selections, professional services, competitive solicitation, operations, construction, and of course, contract management. Then when we get into actual contract administration, well, we're going to have our solicitation processes, your bids, your RFPs, which an RFP is a request for proposals. And you have your RFQs, that's your request for qualifications. Then you have your RFI, your request for information, and your sole source. Now, when we get into bid or bids and bid selection, a bid is defined as a means of a document submitted in response to a bid solicitation to provide goods at a certain price, quantity, time frame, and under specific terms and conditions requested by the department. Now, a bid solicitation, it's defined as a means regarding document requesting submittal of bids for goods or services that are specified by the department. We have an RFP, which is a request for proposals. That's defined, or it means a solicitation document requesting submittal of proposals in response to the parameters and scopes of services required, but does not specify in detail every aspect of how to accomplish or perform the required services. We hear this a lot in construction. And we have a request for qualifications. That's known as an RFQ. And that means a solicitation document requesting submittal of qualifications or specialized expertise in response to the parameters and scopes of services required. Now, we get into the comparison, bid versus RFP versus RFQ. So as we break everything down, bids are generally used for commodities, such as goods, supplies, furniture, equipment, and construction projects. RFPs are generally used for professional or consulting services. And RFQs are generally used to pre-qualify a pool of vendors for use on future projects. Now, solicitation examples: bids, janitorial supplies, furniture, student transportation, food service equipment. Then when we get into RFPs, request for proposals, examples: architectural and engineering services, audit services, student transportation management, and consulting services. And we have requests for qualifications, known as an RFQ. And within RFQs, some examples are various trades, contracting services, fine arts and performing arts consultants, college Excel program, and band and sports uniforms. Now, an RFI is a request for information, and that means a general invitation to firms with knowledge of the scope of services required, requesting information on the subject matter of the solicitation document. This document is used as a research and information gathering tool. Then we have our SS, which is our sole source. Means a vendor who has not been selected through a public solicitation that is exclusively or uniquely qualified to provide goods or services. Now, some of the participants for solicitation: user department, contract administrator, contract compliance and vendor services, board report representatives and coordinators, consultants, legal department, risk and benefits department. Now, the user department responsibilities: number one, user department's funding line or plan for funding the product or service should be identified. Number two, send solicitation requests to the Director of Contract Administration. Three, identify who prepared the scope or users specifications or user department contact person. Let me go over that one again. You identify who prepared the scope or specifications and user department contact person. Again, identify who prepared the scope or specifications and user department contact person. 4, send complete scope specifications in electronic format, computer disk. Well, we don't have a computer disk, so you can send it by way of scanning. You can send it by way of flash drive. And what's on that computer disk is going to be a list of potential bidders or proposers the user would like the contract administrator to contract regarding solicitation. Then you're going to review the draft and return promptly. You're going to send representatives to pre-submittal conferences. You're going to secure an evaluation committee, if applicable, committed to the evaluation process. And you're going to sign confidentially the forms for the review and return of solicitation documents received. And you're going to review submitted responses to solicitation documents. Again, you're going to review submitted responses to solicitation documents. Then you're going to prepare final recommendation to the chief purchasing officer. And then there'll be a board report. Now, this sounds like something that we would do where I work for the city of Indianapolis. This is the process of what the user department does. Now, when we get into contract administrator, they're going to review contract specifications, or let's say contract specifications that are completed with user department's contact person. Going to prepare a draft of solicitation for review by the user, risk management, procurement, and contracts, contract compliance, and law. Then there's going to be a routing of drafts to attain final sign-offs. And there's going to be a review, and the comments will be incorporated to the document. And then after the law department approves, all the information will be sent to all pertinent parties for final review. Then after that, the advertised solicitation and notices will be sent to prospective vendors. They're going to hold a pre-submittal conference, and they're going to hold the solicitation opening. Then they're going to evaluate the documents that are submitted for responsiveness. Then they're going to distribute copies of the solicitation to the user department and other evaluators as applicable. They're going to retrieve, sign confidentially forms from evaluators, and they'll schedule evaluating meetings or evaluation meetings. They will conduct evaluation committee meetings, and they will request analysis reports for financial statements, LexisNexis, MWBE compliance. And then they're going to inform the user department of any issues that would affect the outcome of their decision of the selected vendor. And then the review board is going to report for accuracy. Now, for the contract compliance and vendor services responsibilities, they're going to review and approve all MWBE language in the solicitation document. They're going to attend the pre-submittal conference and answer MWBE questions. When I say MWBE, we're talking about a minority business enterprise and a woman business enterprise. There's also a VBE, which is a veteran business enterprise, and there's a DBE, which is a disadvantaged business enterprise. Now, when we get on to number 3, they're going to conduct a LexisNexis searches for a list of bidders and proposers. They're going to conduct a LexisNexis search for a short list of bidders and proposers. Then they're going to conduct analysis of bidders' MWBE plan. And then they're going to review and approve MWBE language in the board report. Now, once it gets to the board representatives and the coordinators' responsibilities, they're going to prepare a draft board report. Then they're going to prepare a draft board report related documents for the meeting. They're going to monitor the entire board report process. And this does not apply to board report representatives. And then legal, their department, they're responsible to review and approve solicitation documents, review and approve board reports, prepare contracts for vendors, and they're going to serve as a legal advisor on procurement legal issues. And then for the risk and benefits management responsibilities, they're going to review the insurance language in a solicitation document. They're going to provide an analysis of vendor insurance documentation as needed. And then they're going to assist procurement and contracts in assuring vendor compliance with board insurance requirements. And for the consultant, well, the consultant's going to be qualified to provide professional expertise to the user department as needed. They're going to also review documents. They're going to also assist in the preparation of specifications on various projects. They're going to participate as a technical advisor. And then the consultant is going to sign a confidentiality form before any evaluation participation. Now, when somebody is not qualified, and this is the consultant, what they're not qualified to do, they're not qualified to prepare specifications, scopes of services if they plan to respond to the solicitation. The consultant is not qualified to manage entire solicitation processes. And the consultant is not qualified to vote on evaluation committee final results. Now, for everything, you have to come up with some questions. And here are the most frequently asked questions. How long does the process take? Well, it depends on the complexity of the solicitation, the number of respondents, results of vendor analysis, time of year submitted, and responsiveness and cooperation of the solicitation participants. Well, who is responsible for the board report process? Well, the answer is the user's board report representative or coordinator. Who do I contact in what department to start the solicitation process? Well, you're always going to contact the CPO. The CPO is the Chief Purchasing Officer or the Director of Contract Administration in procurement and contracts to start the process. And what type of forms do I have to submit to start the solicitation process? Well, basically, you send a written request for the solicitation with complete specifications or scope of services in the electronic format. The request should also include the name and telephone number of the user contact person, estimated board meeting date, and a list of potential bidders, proposers the user would like the contract administrator to contract. What is a specification or scope of services, and how do I prepare the document? Well, specifications, scope of services are a description of the goods or services requested by the user's department. It is the user's department's responsibility to prepare the specifications if the user does not have the expertise to prepare these specifications. It should consult with someone with technical knowledge of the goods or services requested. Now, if you want to have an efficient solicitation, you have to confirm that funding is available for the project. Provide scope of services specifications which are complete, clear, and concise. You respond to draft and amendment review requests in a timely manner. You also ensure that the participants on your evaluation committee are committed to the completion of the process, and you allow the contract administrator to manage the process, which includes routing and revising solicitation documents and coordinating the evaluation process. Now, before I go on, let me share my screen again and go back to the types of products. Okay. When it comes to contract administration, there's some key aspects. I'm going to break them down for you. Well, the key aspects of contract administration, where you're going to have contract creation and drafting, and that is preparing initial contract documents, including terms and conditions, deliverables, timelines, and pricing details. There's negotiation. You're going to discuss and finalize contract terms with the other party to reach a mutually agreeable agreement. Then there's contract, or we have compliance monitoring within the contract. And that's complex monitoring is to ensure both parties adhere to the contract terms throughout its life cycle. Contract monitoring, that's ensuring that both parties adhere to the contract terms throughout the lifestyle. Correction. That's life cycle. Let me say that again. Contracts have compliance monitoring. Compliance monitoring is ensuring that both parties adhere to the contract terms throughout its life cycle. That's the project life cycle. Then there's change management. That's managing any necessary modifications to the contract terms, including documenting changes and obtaining necessary approvals. Then there's performance tracking. That's when you regularly monitor process against contract milestones and deliverables. Then there's dispute resolution. That's addressing and resolving any disagreements or conflicts that arise during contract execution. Then there's renewal and termination. That's managing the process of extending or ending a contract at its conclusion. Then there are specific contract types related to contract administration. Sales contracts are agreements for the purchase and sale of goods or services between a buyer and a seller. Then there are managed services contracts. Those are contracts for ongoing service provision, often related to technology like cloud hosting. Then there are procurement contracts. They're agreements used to acquire goods or services from vendors through a competitive bidding process. And finally, you have my favorite, construction contracts. Those are contracts outlining the terms of a construction project, including deliverables, timelines, and payment schedules. And we get right back to the PowerPoint. We get to the conclusion and must understand everything about contract administration. I've broken it down, but here's what you need to know. Everyone is important and has a role in the procurement process. You have to plan ahead. You need good specifications and scope of services, teamwork responsiveness, and always remember teamwork is a key. And if you have some questions, you put them in my comment section under the video and I will answer them. Because again, when we deal with contract administration is the process of managing and executing a contract between two parties from the initial planning stages to the delivery of goods and services. And the goal of contract administration is to ensure that both parties fulfill their responsibilities and that the contract is performed in a satisfactory manner. And that concludes this topic on contract administration. If you like what I just presented, just comment, share, and subscribe. And if you're looking for some social and political content, you check out my main channel, a 411 Talk Zone radio show, because for both channels, here's where you need to go. When I record all of my videos from the QCIS channel, which is this channel, and the 411 Talk Zone radio show channel, which that's the channel that I did a video on last night. Well, here's what happens. Well, videos that are recorded from both channels go on to Twitter, which is X. Now, here's where the differences occur. When you listen to the 401 Talk Zone radio show, after X, I also post videos from the 401 Talk Zone radio show channel to my Rumble page and to Truth Social. Now, for the QCIS channel, I post my videos on just one platform. Since it's an educational channel, you can find that video on my LinkedIn page. And once again, thank you for listening to this topic on contract administration from the QCIS channel. On this channel, you get a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. You all have a wonderful, gracious evening.